Welcome everyone. I hope, how was the earlier session? Who went to the session down here? Raise your hand. Oh, almost everyone. Did you guys just stay in your seats this whole time? You're just like, everyone's not gonna move? Oh, you walked around, okay, a little bit. Well, good. Very excited for this conversation. We're gonna be talking about from manual to meaningful, using the right, I didn't write the title, so I do have to read the title. I know we're talking about technology and HR, very much with sort of a benefits slant to it. Of course, I'm very interested in building the fixed healthcare technology stack. I think we are going to stray outside of benefits specifically to some HR general tools from time to time. I'd also say, we can keep this interactive. We've got 40 minutes. There's going to be a dedicated Q&A time at the end. If there is something along, over the next 40 minutes or so that you think is really interesting, just raise your hand and we can definitely keep it a little conversational. Should we start with introductions? Let's do it.
All right. I'm Kaylin Reed. I'm Senior Manager of Total Rewards and Analytics for GoFundMe.
I'm Hirva McQuan, VP of HR for a small real estate investment firm in Culver City. Oh, Hackman Capital, the name.
Yes. And I'm Donald. I got to do my intro earlier. Cool. Let's, actually, I am kind of curious just from the crowd though, just so we have a sense of who we're speaking to. How many people, maybe raise your hand if your company is 50 employees or less. 50 employees or less? Okay. Let's sort of say 50 to 200. Okay. And then 200 to 1,000? Anyone with over 1,000 employees at their company? Yes, 1, 2, 2.5 maybe. I thought I saw another hand. Perfect. Okay, cool. That's helpful. Well, let's get things going. Here we go. Page 1. I'm going to start with the third question, which is maybe Hirva. What is one HR task or process you wish that you could just hit the easy button on and make go away?
For me, it would be payroll because we have to do it every 2 weeks. It's such a long process. It doesn't change that much. And so if we could just queue it up where you could just check it and get people paid, it would be nice.
Yeah, so you're like manually going in, you're turning the combination on the lock and pressing the pay button.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. What makes that so hard? I'm asking as the person who's never done this myself.
What makes it so hard?
Yeah.
It's just you have to run all these reports before and queue it up, and then you have to make sure to everybody's in there. There's nobody missing. Then you have to have somebody else double check it. Yeah. It's just it's a process.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Skipping some of that would be great because it doesn't change that much. And when it does, it should be easy to be like, well, pay this person less.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, totally. That was a very selfish answer. I'm sure you all know why payroll is hard. I actually had no idea. I do know. I have heard it's very hard though. And there are stories of HR tech startups that were like, hey, what do we want to add to our product suite? And sometimes they're like, we should add payroll. How hard can that be? And that was the last thing that ever, that was the strategic decision that sunk their company. So I do know that it's something. Nava is never going to do payroll. I just want to say that right now on the stage. Yeah, that is not our lane. That is not our lane. There's lots of other great companies who I'm happy to keep that as their technology problem to solve. Kaylin, what about you? What is one HR or benefits thing you wish you could just hit the easy button on?
Yeah, so annual budgeting is probably my biggest pain point. So I think, I own compensation and benefits, which are literally two of the biggest expenses for any organization. And we've got a lot of people to make happy. We've got our board, we've got our executives. And a lot of times with benefits, we're budgeting much earlier than the rest of the budget for the remainder of the company. So we're doing that to get OE off in time and to get elections in so that we could be ready for 1/1 open enrollments. And I think what happens is you go to the board and you get your approval on benefits, and then you go later and you get your compensation and payroll budget approved for the year with your pay changes and your promotion cycles and your spot bonuses and your rewards and everything else. And then they look back and say, well, could we have changed anything with our benefits? Can we go back and change some of the ancillary stuff we offer? Or, what's our flexibility there? And we're like, we've already communicated this to our employees. So I think that's probably the most painful because there's just so much back and forth, and the fact that it happens for benefits so much earlier than the rest of the organization creates a lot of pain points.
What's the fix for that?
I don't know if there's any fix for it. It really depends on what fiscal cycle companies are on. So I've seen companies that are, when they're October to September, they have an easier time with it because benefits don't go into effect usually till 1/1. So in those cases, they're budgeting for everything all in one go. But I think for a lot of companies, we have to get the elections in, and we have to get the open enrollment files over to our providers so that it can go live for employees on that Jan 1 date. But a lot of times for the rest of the company, your board and your executives want to see how we did perform this year before they're going to approve the budget for next year and how we finish off the year. So there's always that kind of gray area in between where it just doesn't line up from a timing perspective, which makes it painful.
Yes, that makes sense. Got it. So the hack maybe was, hey, stagger your renewal off of your fiscal year, but even then it's tough to get the approval on the benefits program if the fiscal year is not over and we don't know how the chips sort of all fell.
Yeah, I would say the best hack is to be in constant communication with your finance team. So oftentimes they have a little bit of a gut expectation on which way the board's going to lean in terms of budgeting. They know how we're kind of performing for the year, how we expect to close out. So they might have a number or target in mind that you can aim to and plan for. So that way there's hopefully less back and forth when you do get to that approval time. And for us, that's, usually we're presenting first round in December and then get final approval in, first week of January.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. Well, maybe sort of the other side of this coin is like, what's the exact question here? How is technology? How has technology helped you do more with less? Or, if there was one thing that you wish you could press the easy button on, are there sort of any things where you feel like, we adopted some new tool, we adopted some piece of technology, and it really did feel like the easy button got pressed? Kaylin, I'll start with here, but you look thoughtful. I'll give you a minute. Kaylin, what do you think?
So I think within HR teams, we have a lot of the shoemaker's children syndrome where we're always asked to do more with less. We're probably one of the last areas the company will invest money in. And it's hard to prove an ROI on a lot of our investments. So I think one of the easiest areas where we've been able to get approval and see meaningful change happen has been in more the administrative tasks. So in our project management tools, so managing how we do our communication plans, our performance management and comp review plans, because a lot of times other areas of the business are already leveraging tools and resources that we can tap into. Yeah. So we've kind of seen a lot of success there. We've seen a lot of success in some of our teams have different ticketing systems. So, teams internally have investment in Zendesk, or we use Fresh Services for our IT. So we've been able to tap in and say, hey, well, we can use that as an HR team as well. So it's not a direct investment in us where we're asking money for a tool. It's us saying, can we get access to the tools we already have and leverage them to our advantage? So we've been able to use that to help with employee tickets and questions that have come through to streamline things so that people aren't emailing our HR team constantly. Because I think what happens with employees is they meet one person, the HR team, and they're like, you are now my go-to person for every question I have across HR, regardless of what section of HR you're in. I'm going to come to you for my question. And then that person has to, they might be in L&D, and then they got to come to benefits for a benefits question or comp for a comp question. So having one area to go to for those, streamline all of our questions from employees has been really great.
Any specific tools or products in particular that you're like, oh yeah, and this one just was like, is awesome, and you love it?
So we've used a few project management tools, which I love and recommend. So Asana and ClickUp has been the one we most recently use. They're great for managing, even just, we've got a lot of company comms coming out from all different areas of the business. So we've collaborated with different teams to say, when are you sending communications out? Here's when we want to send communications out for HR things. So that's been helpful to collaborate with other teams on stuff. Same with performance and comp review. We're usually collaborating with finance and accounting, so we can get them in on those project plans and leveraging those tools. So a good project management tool out there can really make things easier for the HR space.
Great. Herba, maybe the same question to you. Yeah, any tools or otherwise that you?
So for us, for the smaller companies, you're coming from a larger company, so it's a little different. For smaller companies, we don't even have the option of using other tools. So I'm curious, how many of you have paper files for employee files or any of that? Are we all off of it? Some of you still do, yeah. So something that I started, we're a smaller company, less than 100. We don't do paper files anymore. We don't do paperwork, so we're all online. So we've really leveraged our HRIS for that. And then like just our, filing, like everything. We use Outlook. Most people are on Google, but embarrassingly, we're still on Outlook. So we use employee files on that and have the different folders and more organized that way. So I think that's really been helpful to cut time. And then sheepishly, I do use AI for our job description. Somebody mentioned it earlier, and I don't know if you guys use that, but that has saved me so much time. It's just literally like popping it in, changing a few things. As HR people, we already have our own little like database that we use to like pop in, so it's nice to use that and then use AI to like make it all together and do it within an hour, and the managers are happy and you're happy because it's off your desk. So those are two things I've used.
Have you ever felt worried like, oh, somebody's going to know this is AI when you're writing the job description?
Always.
Always. If they asked you, what would you say? If I looked at it like, here, this is a really good job description, but I noticed there's an M dash in here. And AI loves M dashes. Did you write this with AI? How would you respond?
Say, must be a typo.
It must be a typo. Okay.
I don't know. Do you guys admit when you use AI? I don't know if you do. I don't know if I'm completely comfortable, but my company, everybody's so busy, I don't think they'd notice it.
And there's different company cultures and different sort of expectations around this sort of stuff. Yeah. Caitlin, I'm sort of curious as we sort of talk about different people on the team using AI, what are your sort of thoughts on maybe that similar question? Like, somebody using AI to like crank out a whole bunch of job descriptions or something along those lines. How do you feel about that?
I think work smarter, not harder.
Okay.
I mean, I think the amount of times I've had employees come to me as a comp expert and say, how do I talk to an employee, or what are good talking points for this situation? This employee is upset about their comp decision or their comp increase. And it's really nice to kind of sometimes take all of my thoughts. And, as an expert in an area, sometimes we tend to over-explain or over-babble, or we make it a little bit more complex. Take all of my thoughts, write them down, look at the situation, say, okay, well, they had a promotion this time, this increase here, all my talking points, put them in and say, just, can you streamline this and like put it in layman's terms for someone? Yeah. And it takes all the work I put in and waters it down, and then I have nice, clean, easy talking points to hand to a manager. So I think there's a lot of good ways to use it to kind of make it a little bit easier for people to digest the information that we're putting out there.
Yeah. I'm sort of curious, I know some of us are probably using AI personally in this room. Maybe raise your hand if you're also using AI for work, like we're talking about up here. Whoa, that's like almost everyone. It's not everyone, but like it's a lot of people. How many of you are your companies paying for people to use AI? Okay, maybe about half of the hands that were up before. Interesting, yeah. Cool, okay. Near and dear to my heart, benefits, strategy, and renewal. Brandon and I, earlier we were talking about how antiquated this process is. There's lots of known problems with it. Outside of HQ, because we were talking about that earlier. But if you could wave a magic wand, some part of the renewal process, like there's one piece of it here that I want to streamline or make easier. Is there something that stands out? And Harva, I'll start with you this time.
I had a feeling that was going to be. I think the admin portion, just the time that it takes to go back and forth, you're just not ready. And so you go to the executives and they're like, what about this? And you're like, dang it. The one thing you don't think about is what they ask you. And so then you have to go back and then you have to go back to your broker and then you wait, or you don't have to sometimes, but then you have to go back and they're like, what about the other one? You're like, I knew they were going to ask that. I just wanted to get it done. So you have to go back again. It's just so time consuming. So I think that, and then the admin portion, updating, like we use Paycom for our HRS. So like updating that with the new files and forms and then our intranet and like all these things, like it just takes so long.
Yeah. So the back and forth, like getting answers to questions that executives have around like, what if we sort of did this, that, or the other? And then just like the paperwork, even if it's virtual paperwork of updating Paycom. Also, yeah, that makes sense. Caitlin, same question to you.
Everything. I think two of the biggest areas I have a complaint for, and one, if you can help with this one down the line, contract approval with legal. Does anyone else hate that process? It's like a contest, which legal team can redline more things in a contract with a vendor. So that's always painful, the back and forth with that. Because you think you get the decisions, you get the approval, and it's like, oh, great, now I have to go through the legal hoops. So anyone that can streamline that would be my hero. More so for the communications aspect. So when we get the decisions in place, we get the budget approved, we know what our plans are, what our providers are, what we're going to offer to the employees. Then we've got to change all of our communications that we had from last year. We've got to update all of our one-pagers for recruiting and candidates, for our internal employees, our benefits sites, all of your intranet, everywhere you've got information. And then there's that, depending on when you do open enrollment, there's like a month or 6-week period where you're managing 2 sets of communication and information to your employees, because you've got the set of what's being sunsetted and going out for the current year versus what's coming up for the upcoming year. And so I think that's always a painful process to make sure you get everything updated everywhere. And sometimes it's like one small detail that you miss on one communication that's buried within your internet that you forgot about. So I think that's always a little bit of a nerve-wracking process for me to make sure that we get everything updated for our employees.
Yeah. How do you manage that today?
Very carefully. So yeah, we are a Google Suite company. And we've got our internal intranet is built off of a Google site as well. So we kind of are very meticulous in how we store and where we have folders within folders and organize things so that we know which communications we need to update and where they're posted to. So, we have a folder of all of our 2025 communications right now, and we know we've got to, one by one copy and update them for 2026 when the time comes. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of organization there. But if there was a easy button on that one where it could say, go through all of our communications and switch it out with these new plans and update things for us, that would be really nice.
Yeah, totally. Herva, that was not something that you mentioned, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have that same problem, or does that feel like less of a problem for you?
We do have the same problem, and it's always that one employee that's the annoying one that finds that one thing that you didn't update. Like, it's always that person. You're like, of course. But yeah, same problem, just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, sure.
I bet everyone in this room can name that one employee for them. Like, there's always one. That name sticks in your head. You know who it's going to be, too.
As soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, there she is at my door.
Yeah. The comms stuff is interesting because obviously as sort of Nava, one of the things that we do, probably maybe like half of what you said, I'm like, oh, we probably either help and build that, or maybe we build the whole thing, but we're involved in this. And I can tell you from our side too, our team is like, boy, this is a giant pain in the butt. And there's so much manual data entry. You are managing these sort of 2 versions of reality, like what's in place and what's coming down the line. So we definitely haven't solved it yet, but one of the things that we did build that we're going to be rolling out over the next month is the ability to generate a benefits guide. Now, this is like a very Nava-specific branded benefits guide. Some companies want a little bit more of their own personal branding poking through on it, but it automatically populates all of the tables with like the plan summary information. So like for all of the medical plans, for all the dental plans, because that's like a lot of the most time-consuming part of it is like typing in all of those deductibles and co-pays and co-insurance. So that we're going to be using that in this upcoming renewal season. But I do think that down the line, this is one of these things where AI, it's called generative AI because it's good at like generating things. And so, we've been playing a lot more with like, hey, actually, we're not even trying to use a template and like mail merge pieces of data in. It's just like, here's the data. Here are all the plan documents. Here's some information about the company. Build a benefits guide. And I'll tell you, it has built some very, very ugly benefits guides, some hideous ones, but it can, and it's getting there, and it's not too hard to imagine that like within the next year or 2, this problem sort of mostly being solved, where you just give it a list of things. You're like, hey, I need a benefits guide, I need a one sheet, I need a recruiting thing, I need updated job descriptions or whatever it happens to be, and it being able to sort of build you that library of content, which would be cool. I think everyone would be happy about that. Cool. Let's talk a little about employee experience and support. And I know we have a sort of a very sort of like benefits and healthcare specific slants on things. But if there is that one annoying employee and they're always asking about other things, we can also talk about that. I am kind of curious, what are some of the most frequent questions that you are getting from employees or that your team is getting from employees? And Caleb, maybe I'll start with you this time.
Yeah, so a lot of policy specific questions. So what's our, travel policy? What can I get approved for meal allowance per day when I travel? How do I go through reimbursement? What's our 401k max? It's always the most basic questions, which is funny because those are the things we usually post about the most and have most upfront and center in, on our intranets and our SOPs and our policies, and we try to make them really simple and straightforward in front of your face, but they will not go hunt for the information most of the time. So it's always the most basic ones. Even on benefits, like what are our, what's our HSA max? What's our, so I think that's the most painful part. Yeah, it's never the complex ones that come up frequently.
Yeah, so small stuff like travel allowances, work from home policy or
leave of absence. What's our, that one comes up all the time.
Yeah, leave of absence is a big one. Herba, I'm curious as well. What are some of the most common questions that you get?
So I think common ones for like in general similar, but then for benefits, like where's my enrollment card? I've lost it. I've had employees at the doctor's office frantic, like, can you get a copy of the card? And I'm like, well, did you download the app? But then here you go. Here's the card. And then I think it's another one. I think those are like basic ones. Like, oh, actually, if you get too good at your job and you guys know this, they'll be like, well, my wife has this insurance. Can she? I'm like, I don't. I literally have an employee in my office. He's like, can I talk to you about this? And I'm like, I don't know her insurance, so no. But then I still kind of try to help, obviously. But it's just crazy. Sometimes it's crazy.
Yeah. It is interesting. I'm do either Slack, Microsoft Teams. What are you?
Slack.
Teams and Slack. You guys like the Apple Mac commercial? Sorry, Herbert, that does not. I think the PC maybe won in the end.
We planned this. We wanted some diversity.
Yeah, I know. Who is on Microsoft Teams in the audience? Wow, a lot.
Wow.
A lot. Slack? Yeah, there we go. The power of distribution. One of the things that we get asked about periodically. So employees have the ability today in the Nava app to ask a lot of these questions. Even on like the 401k stuff, any other policies that would go in the benefits guide. This is not necessarily the thing it's not a commercial. I'm just sort of talking the product stuff. But they can ask all these questions of the AI in the app. Something we get asked about a bit is like a Slack integration or a Teams integration where they don't. We want the people to download the app for a variety of other reasons. It's a great way to find the network provider, check your deductible usage, that sort of stuff. But there are just like a lot of these questions, and the ability to add it into Teams or Slack. I'm sort of curious. Maybe Herva.
I've asked that question.
You've asked it, so you're one of the people who've requested it. I hear about it secondhand. I never know who's asked.
I've asked that question.
You've asked that.
Yep.
How do you tell me why? Tell me why.
First of all, I don't know about you guys, but Teams sucks.
Okay.
And our company doesn't use it that much.
Okay.
Also, we're in office all the time, so people just talk in person. But I'm trying to get people to use Teams a little bit more, and then so I have like a fun channel or like a channel that has like a joke, like that kind of stuff. So I think it would just be nice to add the benefits on there, just let people. It's like getting them to use it a little bit more, and then it's also easier, so they're not knocking on my door.
Where do these questions come to you if they're not coming through Teams?
And they're at my face.
They're just like just walking to the office. Yeah.
Like you're trying to work in there, like, hi. And I'm like,
Do you have 5 minutes? Hey, do you have 5 minutes?
Exactly. Do you have a second?
Yeah, you have a second?
Never going to be a second.
Yeah. Kaylin, what about your thoughts on Slack?
Yeah, I have a little bit different perspective on it. So we use Slack, and we had a conversation of, do we create a benefits channel, and how is that used? And we had a lot of conversation with our IT team and our legal team, and how, if we create this channel, how we expect it to be used. The challenging thing with the benefits space is you create it hoping that they'll use it to publicly source the easy questions, the what's our 401k max question, what's our HSA contribution max, where can I find our benefits guides? But what happens is sometimes people start to use it to ask personal questions on there. And so then you get the risk of, someone's put their personal information on here, other people can see it. You want to take it off and answer it privately, but then other people are wondering why you didn't answer it publicly, and then that becomes a thing. And so you kind of go down a rabbit hole that can be dangerous. I think in certain areas, in certain tools, that integration is awesome. We use it for celebrations, and celebrating anniversaries and birthdays and recognition for employees. In those cases, it's really great. But yeah, in the benefit space, for comp questions, for those things, because it's such a broad site that multiple people can come to, it can be risky. So I think that's a hard thing to balance for companies. And then you got to go down the rabbit hole of the governance and how you expect the Slack to be used. And if someone does post something that you don't want on there, how do you remove it? Where do you answer it? How do you direct employees? So yeah, I think that one's walking on thin ice there a little bit.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense and a different perspective. Okay, I know where the questions are coming from now and where they're not. So this is great. Let's talk a little bit about open enrollment. This is probably where the greatest volume of questions are, just on either side of that effective date, 45 days or so. What tools do you use? What tools do you use to help employees navigate the open enrollment process, to communicate the new benefits plans? Herva, we'll start with you again.
What page is that on?
Oh, we are on
page
question number 8. You can also just freestyle.
To be honest, I think I know my answers. Though I use my account manager, Sophia, for open enrollment. Very much so. She's like my partner. She's, though she's not our employee, she's a part of our team.
Yep.
And so that's very helpful for anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, my tool is named Sophia.
Correct.
Yes, my tool is named Sophia. Does she come into the office, or what is?
So she's available. She's in San Diego and our office is in Culver City, but we do open enrollment online, like Zoom.
Yep.
And open enrollment. We do the meeting on Zoom and then she comes in for any questions. So super helpful.
Yeah. Is there any technology other than maybe so we use Zoom for the open enrollment meeting. Are there any other tools or pieces of technology that you use to help your employees better understand?
No, because so we use Zoom and then so we download the online webinar, whatever hour it takes. We have that. And then we have the PDF of the manual and the brochure and everything, but they're still in your office. So no.
So Sophia and then people coming into your office, this is how you muscle your way through open enrollment.
Correct.
All right. Yeah. Caitlin, what about you?
So yeah, I second that. Account managers are really, really helpful. We use Helia, which is a tool to help our employees decide.
Which one is it?
Helia.
Helia, okay.
Yeah, so they can load in the plans that we're offering for the year. They can load in their partners' plans, and the tool will kind of prompt them through different things and ask them some questions about what they expect their healthcare needs to be for the upcoming year. And it will compare the plans and give them a recommended, best, next best, worst case option for all the plans to help them decide. Our employees love that. We have, a high rate of usage on that one. But otherwise, for open enrollment, a lot of the tools are going to be, Zoom. We do a lot of webinar sessions. We like to do a webinar week leading up to our open enrollment, where we organize for all of our providers and vendors to come in and kind of talk about what we're offering, the plans, what's available, and get the information out there. And then give the one-pagers, the benefits site, give that information to employees ahead of open enrollment week. So that way, during open enrollment week, they can come to us. They can come to our Nava support team and ask questions to them, ask questions to our team, and it becomes more of really just deciding on what works best for them. As far as decision tools, Helia is kind of the big one we leverage.
Cool. I have so many questions. Okay. Actually, I'll start with the audience again. How many folks have ever offered their employees, either currently or in the past, a decision support tool? Helia, Jellyvision, obviously Nava has ours. Has anyone? Yes, I'm seeing a few. So very few, 4 or 5 people, maybe 5 people. Okay, so still, and that's sort of what I've found as well too. I think everyone sort of sees or understands the conceptual value of this, but the penetration of tools like this still is pretty small.
So I'm just assuming, sorry to cut you off, is because when you're a smaller company, you just don't have access to that. So that's part of the reason we kind of have to manage in-house and don't.
I saw some nodding.
I was just going to say, if you're a Nava client, there's a decision-making tool called Ask Alex, very similar to what you talked about. So they pre-upload all of whatever your particular plans are, and they take you through a decision-making process around what your family's like, what was your healthcare like last year? What do you anticipate it's going to be this year? What do you think is the worst case scenario? And actually, so I work for a tech firm, so like we're really into technology and AI and decision making. It's one of the few things that like my developers love. Like they're always like, "This is amazing," and it's very cost efficient. So over the years that we've been using it, I've had employees tell me they've actually downgraded their benefits plan, and it's still a better cost efficiency for them. They're getting a robust plan, and they're not overinsured, which we don't always think about being overinsured, that you're actually paying way too much for what you use. So, I mean, I'm a huge Nava fan anyway, but if you're not, if you're not a, and I don't know if it's proprietary to Nava or if it's another company's tool, but if you join Nava, this is an amazing free perk. So just FYI. And I'm Rachel. You can like talk to me afterwards. I love it.
Yeah. So historically, this is, if you're a smaller company, access to these tools is pretty limited. Ask Alex, I think, is about $20 per employee per year. They have a lot of contract minimums though. Nava was able to get those waived for a lot of our clients. So like Sleep Score probably would have not been able to get Alex. Now, yeah.
Yeah, I would say even,
Yeah.
yeah, so Helia has been pretty low cost for us. Obviously, we're a decent sized company, but Helia is pretty low cost per employee per year. And I think what we saw with our employees at GoFundMe is we were offering some higher tier plans, and the majority of our employers were enrolling in that. We have a lot of young, healthy employees that weren't necessarily needing that amount of coverage. They were over-insuring themselves, and then as an organization, we were paying more for it. So having a tool like Helia guide employees on what the best option was, we actually saw a lot more of our employees choose those lower tier cost plans, which actually ended up covering the cost of Helia because we saved money on the plans they were enrolling in. So I think that's a great way to prove that ROI to your companies if you can. It's not one of the highest cost tools out there. So in terms of our overall benefits, it's a little bit of a drop in the water of our total benefits budget that we spend.
Yeah. We are big fans of that. I think one of the things in the earliest years of Nava, we're very interested in healthcare navigation, guiding people to the right doctors, to save some money, or like if you need some imaging, one place might be $500 for an MRI, another place might be $2,000. And if you're on a high deductible plan, that actually matters a lot. Like that's money out of your pocketbook. And that's still very useful, but I think as we started to go just talk to everyday people and how they navigated the healthcare system, most people didn't think about shopping their doctors or shopping their blood work. They're like, what are you even talking about? You sound like a crazy person. But what they all had what they all kept telling us is like, I just don't know which health insurance plan to choose. Yeah. That was the big thing we just kept hearing over and over and over again. And of course, for the folks in this room, you're like, yeah, duh, I get that question 100 times every single open enrollment. But that was why we rolled out Jellyvision, and we've built, actually we should talk, we've built a different version of it internally. So Rachel, we can get you onto that. But yeah, the decision support thing is huge, because the other thing I'll say is, if you're an employee, unless you like buy a house or a car, choosing your health insurance is the most important personal finance decision you make in a year. It is the most important personal finance decision you make in a year, and most people are over-insuring. So yeah, anyway, love any tool like this, just getting it into more people's hands. Okay, we've got only a couple of minutes left. We'll do rapid fire. We're gonna do rapid fire round. You guys ready? Okay. What's the one AI tool that you wish would exist for HR right now?
Ooh, wish would exist?
Wish would exist.
If I can get to answer all my employee questions for me, if
All
I can get
employee
my
questions.
help desk to answer all, templatize the responses and answer, 90% of my questions.
Let's talk. Herva.
Ditto.
Yeah? Ditto.
It's just
Okay.
like, sometimes employees think like, can I have a second or 5 minutes? But then what they're asking takes you up to 2 to 3 hours to figure out or find. So just having something was like, answer the question quick would be great.
Building a business case for a new program or tool in HR. What's the one-liner piece of advice for the audience? Herva, you first.
Well, we all know that it has to be cheap and safe. You know, cost not cost a lot.
Not cost a lot.
Yeah.
Make it cheap.
Make it cheap.
See, I think you go to your executives and you figure out what they want to do in the upcoming year, and you got to find a way to prove the ROI on it. So right now we've got an executive that, hiring is really big for him. So we wanted a workforce analytics tool in place so we could show him, you want to hire better talent. So the ROI is going to be, we can pinpoint where you're not utilizing your existing talent well, and you're losing people to turnover because you're not looking internally when you promote people instead of going to hire externally, which costs you more. So I think being able to have like a true ROI case that is relevant to what the leaders are focused on in the upcoming year is going to help you get a win.
I dig it. Okay. How do we handle change fatigue? Change fatigue, whether it's a process, a tool, introducing a tool, something like that. Rapid fire, one sentence. Hirva.
Push them through it.
Push them through it. Just get this. Yeah. Okay. All right. Caitlin.
I think you have to approach change with a lot of empathy for your employees. You have to consider how it personally impacts them. And then as you're developing your communication plan, because clear, transparent communication, frequent communication also is helpful. You need to address it in a way that solves the employee's problem, or whoever your stakeholder is, if it's a tool that your executives are going to use that solves their problem. So I think you need to come into any kind of change with a lot of empathy and a plan to clearly and overly communicate.
That's more than one sentence.
It is more than one
Sorry.
sentence. You guys have been, I love how it's been so like hot and cold, fire and ice. You're like, I'm an Apple, I'm a Mac. And you're like, empathy. And you're like, make them do it. So much fun. Okay, and then if you think about a tech rollout that like missed the mark or failed, the one lesson or takeaway, Hirva.
I think it's getting everybody's buy-in, similar to what you said earlier, but making sure why it's so important, like why it's needed. I rolled out this performance management. I think it was called High Five. It was really cool. I think it was a great system, but I don't think everybody understood why we were doing it and getting everybody's buy-in. So we rolled it out. I was so excited and nobody was using it. So embarrassed because everybody needed it. They were already doing the things, but they didn't have a place to like record the stuff and like use it. So that's mine.
All right, Kaylin.
Yeah, I second that. If you don't have executive or leadership buy-in, it's going to fall flat in its face. All your employees are going to go to their manager first, and they go to their manager, and they go to their manager. So if you're not building your distribution plan from the top down and getting buy-in, it's gonna break down, it's gonna crumble, and you're gonna have not the usage that you want with whatever tool you're trying to implement.
Amazing. I love it. Well, I think that I'm looking at Julia, but I think we're at time. Yes, we're good. Okay, thank you so much.